No, no, not this again. You ever have one of those dreams where you're being chased by a weird guy with red tights on a unicycle, and then you wake up and realize it was just another episode of your recurring nightmare? No? Just me? While we let the cold sweat evaporate, let's take this time to review another friend with recurring symptoms, and a name that sounds the same to boot: Borrelia recurrentis. Borrelia recurrentis is the cause of louse-borne relapsing fever. Now remember, a bow is our recurring symbol for Borrelia, which is why our friend is being chased down by one in all of these nightmares. I'm no expert at interpreting dreams, so I'll save my thoughts about that for a TED Talk or something. But what I do know is that the recurring nature of these nightmares should remind you that Borrelia recurrentis causes a relapsing and recurring fever. But there's more to the story than that, so let's start with some general features of this pesky bug. First, it's a spirochete. So, we'll give these bedposts a spiral shape to them. We can visualize this Borrelia species using dark field microscopy, where their spiral bodies look like they're glowing against a dark background, just like these glowing stars on the dark ceiling. If dark field microscopy isn't available, Borrelia recurrentis can also be seen with the recurrentis stain, the typical stain used on peripheral blood smears, symbolized by a recurring gentleman, Sir Wright and Sir Giemza. Another special feature of Borrelia recurrentis is that it avoids immune system detection through antigenic variation by regularly changing the surface proteins of its outer membrane. And how adorable are these bedposts with these multicolored lights to represent the variable surface antigens? Oh, pretty. With that squared away, let's chat about the risk factors associated with the Borrelia recurrentis infection and louse-borne relapsing fever. People living in poorly resourced countries affected by war or famine, and people living in crowded conditions are more likely to get louse-borne relapsing fever. We'll represent overcrowding with this pile of stuffed animals. Which reminds me, check out the stuffed bug. It looks just like a human body louse. And that's because the human body louse is the vector for Borrelia recurrentis. The louse first ingests Borrelia recurrentis when feeding on infected people. Then the spirochetes grow and replicate in the louse's body cavity and go on to feed on other people, infecting them. Another mode of transmission is through direct contact, oftentimes a break in the skin from scratching at the louse. In some cases, Borrelia recurrentis can enter the conjunctiva when an infected person rubs their eyes, like our weary eye dreamer shown here. Because lice can move from one person to another, it should come as no surprise that humans are considered the reservoir host of this pathogen. After an incubation period of about 1 week or so, patients usually develop a sudden onset of symptoms as a result of the bacteria circulating in the blood. One of the main symptoms of louse-borne relapsing fever is, you probably guessed it, fever. Represented by this flame bandana hanging from an elevated spinning mobile to remind you that they are usually cyclic and high. During these recurring febrile episodes, which normally worsen over 5 days on average, patients may present with a headache, chills, sweats, muscle and joint pain, nausea, and vomiting. One thing to note is that a crisis phase happens after each febrile episode. This crisis phase is 2 parts, and we've depicted them with these crisis movie posters. In part 1, which usually lasts 15 to 30 minutes, the characteristic findings include high temperatures, high heart rate, and high blood pressure, or what we like to call fire frenzy. Oh, and don't forget Rigers up the wazoo. And if you somehow manage to survive part 1, the second part is, well, cold. It lasts several hours like this cold crash sequel, and you'll see falling temperatures and falling blood pressures. Keep a close eye on patients during this time, as the risk of mortality is highest during a crisis. Some other classic findings associated with louse-borne relapsing fever include jaundice, symbolized by these yellow pajamas, and thrombocytopenia, represented by our recurring fallen white plates. Finally, let's thank our glowing stars that there isn't a part 3 of this movie series and move over to the left of this room to talk about treatment. If diagnosed with Borrelia recurrentis, you'll want to give your patient either penicillin G or doxycycline. This novelty purple pencil represents penicillin, while the bicycle shown here should help you recall doxycycline. One last point before we head out. Remember to closely monitor your patient when starting antibiotics. Like with other spirochetes, watch out for the Jerisch-Herxheimer reaction, which is when the dying spirochetes release antigens and trigger an immune response, which can manifest as fevers, chills, myalgias, and more. To learn more about the Jerisch-Herxheimer reaction, head on over to our Treponema pallidum sketch. And that's it for Borrelia recurrentis. And here's to no more recurring nightmares in the future. Except those flying potatoes. I don't really know what that's about.